Random House Audio presents Showing Up for Life, Thoughts on the Gifts of a Lifetime by Bill Gates Sr. with Mary Ann Mackin. Read by Patrick Egan. With an opening and a closing by the author. Forward. Dad, the next time somebody asks you if you're the real Bill Gates, I hope you say yes. I hope you tell them that you're all the things the other one strives to be. Bill Gates.
Some second thoughts about thinking. In the early days of Microsoft's success, when my son's name was starting to become known to the world at large, everybody from reporters at Fortune magazine to the checkout person at the local grocery store would ask me, "How do you raise a kid like that? What's the secret?" At those moments, I was generally thinking to myself, it's a secret all right, because I don't get it either. My son Bill has always been known in our family as Trey. When we were awaiting his arrival, knowing that if the baby was a boy, he would be named Bill Gates III, his maternal grandmother and great-grandmother thought of the confusion that would result from having two Bills in the same household. Inveterate card players, they suggested we call him Trey, which, as any card player knows, refers to the number 3 card. As a young boy, Trey probably read more than many other kids, and he often surprised us with his ideas about how he thought the world worked, or imagined it could work. Like other kids his age, he was interested in science fiction. He was curious and thoughtful about things adults had learned to take for granted or were just too busy to think about. His mother, Mary, and I often joked about the fact that Trey sometimes moved slowly and was often late. It seemed like every time we were getting ready to go somewhere, everybody else in the family would be out in the car or at least have their coats on. And then someone would ask, "Where's Trey?" Someone else would reply, "In his room." Trey's room was in our daylight basement, a partially above-ground area with the door and windows looking out on the yard. So his mother would call down to him, "Trey, what are you doing down there?" Once Trey shot back, "I'm thinking, Mother. Don't you ever think?" Imagine yourself in our place. I was in the most demanding years of my law practice. I was a dad, a husband, doing all the things parents and families do. My wife, Mary, was raising 3 kids, volunteering for the United Way, and doing a million other things. And your child asks you if you ever take time to think? Mary and I paused and looked at each other, and then we answered in unison, "No." However, now that I've had nearly half a century to reflect on my son's question, I'd like to change my answer to it. Yes, I think about many things. For example, reflecting on my own experience raising a family, I think about how, as parents, most of us try to feel our way through the challenges that come with being married and raising children. We have very little formal training for those roles, and they are 2 of the most difficult and important things we'll ever undertake. I think about the inequities that exist in our world, and about the opportunities we have to correct them, opportunities that have never existed before in all of human history. I also think about less critical concerns, such as when the University of Washington Huskies might make it to the Rose Bowl. Lately, I've been wondering if any of that thinking is worth passing on to others. I realize that I've been privileged to meet many remarkable people whose stories might be inspiring or helpful to other people. Also, in reflecting on our family's life, when our children were young, it has occurred to me that our experiences might be useful or at least interesting to other families. There is one lesson I've learned over the years as a father, lawyer, activist, and citizen, which stands above all the others that I hope to convey in these pages. It's simply this: we are all in this life together, and we need each other.
Showing Up for Life. 80% of success is showing up. Woody Allen, from Love and Death. A few years ago, I received an award from the YMCA. The day the award was to be presented, I looked around the crowded ballroom, wondering why all those people were making such a fuss over me. The only thing I could come up with was that I show up a lot. When I was a young lawyer in the 1950s, I first became involved with causes in the community by joining the board of the YMCA, where I had spent many happy hours as a college student. After a while, I decided I wanted to do more to show up in my community and help out in a hands-on way. So along with doing pro bono law work, I started serving on committees and boards for everything from the Chamber of Commerce to school levy campaigns. Over time, the nature of some of them changed and the number grew. At the same time, my wife, Mary, was showing up for her own list of causes. Why do I show up so much? Well, I suppose there are a lot of reasons. I show up because I care about a cause, or because I care about the person who asked me to show up. And maybe sometimes I show up because it irritates me when other people don't show up. My obsessive showing up has become a joke among my children. Still, I notice they've picked up the habit. And frankly, that's what happened to me. I started showing up because as far back as I can remember, I watched other people I admired showing up. In my hometown of Bremerton, Washington, showing up to lend your neighbors a hand was just something decent people did. My parents, on a scale of 1 to 10, were 9s at showing up. My dad was somebody people knew they could count on. If there was money to be raised for a good cause, my dad was always willing to call on people and ask them to give a few dollars. He had led the effort to have a new park built in town. I read about it in an old newspaper long after he died. I had not known about it, but it didn't surprise me. My mom showed up for a long list of community activities that included everything from picnics to fund drives. My parents never talked about showing up. They just did it. Another adult who provided me with powerful life lessons in showing up was our next-door neighbor, Dorm Brayman. He showed up for so many things and accomplished so much in his life, you'd have thought it would take 2 men to live Dorm's life. Dorm owned a cabinet-making business, and in his spare time he led our Boy Scout troop. He was a remarkable man whose showing up touched a lot of lives. In fact, even though he had never graduated from high school, after we Boy Scouts were all in college, Dorm ran for mayor of Seattle and won. Later, he was appointed by President Richard Nixon as Assistant Secretary of Transportation. In the early years when he was our scoutmaster, one weekend every month, rain or shine, Dorm took us on adventures that ranged from laid-back camping trips to arduous 20-mile hikes through the Olympic Mountains. One year, he even acquired an old bus, added more seats to it, and took all of us to Yellowstone and Glacier National Parks. Far and away the most unforgettable memory I have of Dorm's showing up involved the building of what we called Camp Tahuya and Sundown Lodge. This adventure began when Dorm decided our Boy Scout troop was going to acquire its own campsite and on it build a marvelous log lodge. The first step was to persuade the local Lions Club to back the idea and buy the troop the land. We named the place Camp Tahuya after the river that ran through it. Once we had the site, Dorm taught us how to clear land, fell trees, and build. A lot has changed since then. At that time, we felled the trees by hand and sawed the logs into proper lengths using 2-man crosscut saws, and hand-peeled and planed them smooth and to proper dimensions using hand-wielded adzes. We had one power tool, a circular saw powered by Dorm's flatbed truck. Every weekend for 3 summers, we 20 teenagers, Dorm, and our assistant scoutmaster worked all day, cooked our meals over open fires, and slept under the stars.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?